Take a look behind the curtain. Satisfy those pondering eyes. Behind the scenes you'll learn for certain just how we roll the dice.
Hello everybody and welcome to another Ironfist Institute video. Today we're doing something a wee bit different from the regular campaign with a little look behind the scenes at the cast of the Ironfist Institute. So to start with, I'm James and I play MISHNIN in the campaign as well as editing all the videos that you can see on the channel. I'm still very new to the world of Dungeons & Dragons, something I've been roughly familiar with for a while, but it wasn't until the lockdown in 2020 that I finally took the time to try and learn a bit about it, and that led me to joining the Discord server that Martin had put together and starting a campaign with this group that we play with now. We started our first campaign in the summer last year, and it was just so much fun learning about how the game runs and meeting these other weirdos that I get on with so well. That we just sort of decided to record our sessions and turn them into this web series now that you can see as the Ironfist Institute. Since I'm still very new to the game, I haven't really played many different characters, although I am now starting to really get into creating some different character traits and personalities and developing them into sort of fully fledged characters within D&D, and some of those hopefully I'll be able to share with you guys down the line. The rest of the group they will definitely know me as playing the half-elf bard, Fourth. He was my first ever character that I created for D&D, and because of that, at the start, I didn't really know how I wanted to play him or what I wanted to do. I'd heard of bards as a class, and as them, they're a bit of a sort of all-rounder. They dabble in everything, really. So I thought that would be a good way to learn the ropes and dip my toe into every little feature that D&D has to offer. As things developed, he turned into this really sort of charismatic and cheeky guy, and it gave me a chance to write a few songs along with the campaign as well, which was a real blast. I am super excited for the Ironfist Institute to continue. I know we've got a lot of episodes saved up that will be coming out over the next few months, and I can't wait for you guys to see them. I think in particular, I'm looking forward to seeing the reactions from some of the episodes set in the 10 Towns up in the north, and specifically some of the interactions MISHNIN has when he finally gets sort of let loose and starts meeting all these different animals and different wee critters in the snowy tundra. I'm also really excited to just crack on with this video and let you guys find out a bit about the rest of the cast, so I'll go ahead and shut up for a moment and we can move on to our first cast member. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm now joined by Gareth, who I'm sure you guys will recognise as MORDUS-DRU in the Ironfist Institute. If you want to say hello, Gareth.
Hey there.
So first of all, I've been asking everyone this, but how did you actually get started in D&D, and what was your first sort of interaction within Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, there's a wee kind of story up to that. I've been a gamer my whole life. Video games for like the 80s. RPG games are my favourite. Role-playing games like Neverwinter Nights and Knights of the Old Republic and stuff.
Yep.
And I think one day I was kind of looking into board games, tabletop games and stuff, and I came across D&D, and it's something I'd always wanted to play, but I didn't really know anyone that played it or would join me to play it. And then I think I came across an app that you could play through text, like text stories, but using the D&D rules, so rolling and stuff like that. And I thought that's pretty good.
That sounds pretty cool, yeah.
Aye, and I joined a Facebook page, and I think it was D&D for beginners. And then I'm sure Martin put a post up about it, for beginners to join on Discord, and yeah, I joined that, and I didn't even realise you could play it online. I just thought it had to be a physical setup kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
But
Yeah.
after looking into it and seeing that you could play it online now, I went out and bought myself a laptop specifically to play D&D online. So Aye, no look back.
Yeah, excellent. So
Um,
that obviously the Discord that you joined is the Adventurers Academy that we're all part of. Was that your
yes,
first
aye.
actual gameplay of Dungeons and Dragons? Was with us in our first campaign?
It was, yep. Playing it like that way, like you probably, it's the closest to being tabletop. There was another Discord group I joined. It was mostly or text-based stuff. There was no chatting live with people. I kind of it didn't really pull me into the world as much as being able to talk with people playing it. So I'd say this was the first place that I tried D&D altogether.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's probably the case for quite a few of us. I know.
Yeah.
Certainly, my first experience was just looking through stuff during lockdown on Facebook, and yeah, found Martin and the Discord server, and the rest is history.
Pretty much, aye.
So as I mentioned before, everyone that's probably watching this knows you as MORDUS-DRU, or the voice of. But obviously, we've done a campaign before, and you've played many other characters, I'm sure, in one-shots or in other campaigns. What can you tell us about some of the characters that you've played before?
Well, my first ever D&D character was Slinkle Bimbledink, gnome rogue.
Fantastic name.
Yeah, it took me a wee while to come up with that. Just like reading into the background of gnomes, so they like funny sounding names. And I was kind of walking about my room just saying out stupid names and seeing what was funny, and that came out with that. Rogues. It's usually a class I'd choose in my like computer games, so I kind of went with that. As I was playing, I kind of looked into the background of or where I could go with the rogue. I didn't really have. I had a kind of basic story, but I didn't have any outline of where I was going to take him. It kind of just naturally came along as we played.
Yeah.
Aye.
Very cool indeed. And then finally, last question. What would you say is the moment so far from everything that we've recorded? What is the moment that you're most excited for people to see when it airs, when the episode comes out? What moment of recording are you most excited for people to see?
It has to be the thumb sucking moment, I think. Yeah, that was too funny.
That was a very good one indeed. Yeah.
Like I kind of when we were talking about it, I was kind of visualizing it. Didn't help, but it did help.
It was one of the moments that I remember thinking. It was so quick. I think was what made it so funny. It was just. I said, like, "Oh, he's probably sucking his thumb," and it was such a quick response. It was really really good improv actually.
So how did we even get here? What?
Yeah, that's definitely made one of the. It's so funny, in fact, that I had to include it in the trailer for the Ironfist Institute.
Yeah,
yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, man. I'll let
problem.
you get going, and we'll move on to our next cast member. Hey everybody, welcome back. This time I'm joined by Kay, who you guys will know is playing ADRIE on the Ironfist Institute. If you want to say hello, Kay.
Hello, Kay.
You know, you're the first person that's done that joke.
I'm not.
I've been expecting it from everyone, and you're the first person to do it.
Too hard to resist.
It is a classic, isn't it? Ironically, from the mum of the group doing the dad joke.
It's gonna be done.
So, first question that I've been asking everyone is just a bit about your background with Dungeons and Dragons. How did you actually get started in playing? What was your first sort of experience of Dungeons and Dragons?
So my first experience was like a beginner's one-shot with a completely different group, and that was a lot of fun. But my first experience with an actual campaign is with you guys over at the academy. So with Martin. So I've been with Martin since the beginning.
Awesome, yeah. I think a lot of us were in the same sort of situation where we'd sort of heard of Dungeons and Dragons and coming from some kind of sort of gaming background. And it wasn't until lockdown that we actually decided to sort of pick it up as a new skill, and we found out about Martin in the Discord and everything, and started playing from there. So I guess you're in the same situation as the rest of us in terms of your first actual campaign.
Yeah, so I'd always known about Dungeons and Dragons, and my dad told me a story a few months back about him actually playing with us when we were little, but I was so little I don't remember.
Oh,
That
really?
he'd actually played, yeah, that he'd actually played or tried very hard to play Dungeons and Dragons with us, and it hadn't gone down well. So he was surprised to hear that I actually do play Dungeons and Dragons.
Man, I would love for him to listen into some of these things and find out which was more chaotic, playing with you as a child or playing with us currently.
I think he would much rather go back to when I was a child.
I think that says a lot about us, then, doesn't it?
I find it difficult to believe that playing Dungeons and Dragons with children is more chaotic than our group.
Oh, God bless Martin for sticking with us this long.
I know.
So obviously, you play ADRIE in the Ironfist Institute episodes.
I do.
But we've done a campaign before where you were Loxy, the is it Asamar? That's what Beck is, right?
She was. Yeah, she was Asamar cleric.
And we've known you as Oriana before that as well. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about some of the characters that you've played before. Give us a little bit of backstory to some of them, and any others that I'm maybe not familiar with as well. So
Loxy, Oriana, and ADRIE are or ADRIE as I like to call her. We all call her something different. They're three completely different characters, and they're my only long-term characters. So Oriana was your tiefling ranger, your typical get into as much trouble as possible, only out for herself tiefling, and then obviously Loxy was the cleric, and she was very much for the group, and she was very much I think she tried to be sort of a calming presence, but was more, oh God, what have they done and how can we fix this? And then, so I don't know what's happening with ADRIE at the moment. She's sort of still trying to find her feet in the world, but she's very much just goes along with the flow. She's not doesn't really have a motive at the moment.
Oh, that's excellent. I mean, it's led to a lot of good opportunities. I like a lot of the sort of character traits that ADRIE has. I like a lot that we're all doing with the characters, to be honest. But I do like the mix between ADRIE and Timmy of the obsessive compulsive sort of lying, and Timmy just believing everything she says because she seems so trustworthy.
I think she's just a little bit what's the word? Unassuming. So she gets away with just. And Timmy, obviously, they have their background together. So Timmy, Beck, and ADRIE, they've got their little rapport going. Beck's sort of lumbered with these two oafs. And Timmy means wide-eyed wonderment at the world, and ADRIE just looking for her next hot meal, really.
Brilliant. And then last question, just to finish off. Obviously, we've been with the recording process since the very beginning. What is the moment from recording the show so far that you're most excited for people to see when it airs? What moment from all of the episodes that we've done so far are you most excited for people to be able to actually see?
Oh, I don't think it's out yet, or I don't think it'll be out at the same time as this is going to be out. But there's some interesting cave behaviours.
Yes.
You learn a few things about each character in the group in a cave. So I'm looking forward to that one coming out.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, that is a good one. I'm looking forward to editing that one. I haven't actually got around to editing it yet, so the episode isn't gonna come out for another couple of weeks yet. But that's one to keep looking forward to, viewers.
Yeah, there's definitely some snap decisions from several of the characters that make you go, ooh. Ooh. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time and for answering my questions. And I'll move on to whoever's next in our interviewing process here. I've done all these in a very weird order, so this could be the last one, or there could be someone else after this. I guess we'll find out in just a moment. So next, we'll move on to David, who you guys will recognise as playing Timmy in the Ironfist Institute. If you want to say hi, David.
Hi, David.
Excellent. So, same question we've had to everyone else. To start off with, how did you actually get started in Dungeons and Dragons? How did you get involved in D&D in the first place?
I'm not sure if it's the normal path in, but I got interested in it from seeing it featured in a couple of TV shows to begin with, like Stranger Things and The Big Bang Theory. And I had a birthday coming up, and I was like, wonder what all this Dungeons and Dragons is about. There's a lot of dice being rolled. Don't really understand it when it's in the TV show. Wouldn't mind getting an idea of how it works. So put it on my birthday list, as I didn't really have much else to stick on there. And I bought the Dungeons and Dragons Essentials kit. And it kind of started from there with regards to researching, and then finally logging into social media and finding this group of experts in role play before
Experts is
they
a very
had
loose term
the
for this,
rough
isn't it?
diamonds, the rough diamonds that we were.
So how long ago was that then? How long have you been playing? Was it just our group that you started with?
Yeah, so it was a lockdown thing for me. So I bought the kit in the February, but I didn't really touch it until just after the March 2019. That'd be right? Was that,
Yeah.
or was that 2020?
2020 was when we went into lockdown, wasn't it? I mean, it feels like an eternity ago.
It does. Yeah, so March 2020. So that would probably be when I first started to dip my toe into the Dungeons and Dragons waters.
Lovely. And obviously, everyone that's been watching the Ironfist Institute knows you as Timmy, but you've obviously played a whole plethora of other characters. Probably out of all of us, you're the one that seems to have the most characters sort of saved up, other than maybe Ben. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the other characters that you've played in other campaigns?
Yeah, so my first character I ever created was a life cleric dwarf called Devol Rockseeker. And if you think that surname sounds familiar, if you're just getting into D&D, that's because I created the cousin of one of the rock seekers from the Lost Mines of Fandelver starters kit,
Right.
which was the first adventure that I did when I was learning Dungeons and Dragons. In our first campaign that we did, I played a halfling wizard called Davras Leafguard.
Which is the first character I got to see you playing as in our initial campaign when we started last year.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, alongside your whimsical bard.
And then just to finish off, I'll let you rush away after this, but what is a moment from having recorded the Ironfist Institute so far? What moment during the recordings are you most excited for people to finally see when it airs?
Wow. There's been so many funny moments already, given the amount of content we've probably already got. One of the things that sticks in my mind recently was the most recent episode that we put down, and a wonderful little argument between two characters, which developed into a slight twist to the story that we weren't expecting at the time. And I just thought that played really well, and really started to show the some character depth as we've kind of gelled together as a team, or not gelled together in some cases. And it was just really nice to see a real free flowing off the top of the head go at each other, and yeah, it was very exciting to watch and sit back and listen to.
Yeah, excellente. So there you go, guys. You've got that to look forward to in the future at some stage. Speaking from experience, having edited these, I think that'll be a fair bit down the line, but that's a little clip to look forward to when that eventually does come out. But thank you for your time, David. I'll let you head off just now if you're needing to do anything, and we'll move on to our next cast member. Okay, and we are back with our next cast member, which is Ash. If you want to say hello.
Hiya!
Excellent. So, as with everyone else, got just a few questions for you to let everyone know a bit about you and your background regarding D&D. So, first of all, how did you get started in D&D? What was your your initiation into Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, my older sister has always been into D&D, and she was the person who actually got me my first dice and then dice set. But I was aware she was into it, but I was just I didn't really get into it, so to speak, until that first lockdown in the summer months, like June, July, and really bored trying to find stuff to watch, and started watching Critical Role, their second campaign, and got really into it. And that was 100 episodes in a month. That was a lot of time.
That's a proper binge, yeah.
It's like 400 hours. Yeah. But while I was watching that, I was just hunting around online and saw that there was like a 3-pack of all the kind of 3 main books, Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, DM Guide, and I was like, okay. And so I had like the dice set that my sister gave me like by my side, and so I rolled the dice and got a natural 20. I was like, okay, if I get 3 of these in a row, then I will buy that and look for a D&D group. And rolled again, natural 20. I was like, ooh. And then rolled again, natural 20. And I'm like, well, there I go.
There you go. That's a sign from the universe that it was time to get into D&D.
Yeah, man. So I hopped onto the UK Dungeons and Dragons Facebook, which led me to the Discord. I posted that I'm a brand new player, looking for a group, and there I was approached by Martin, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So, in terms of how long you've actually been playing D&D, it was the lockdown that got you into it and got you started completely. So not only are you, I think that's probably the case with most of us. We maybe sort of heard of it before, but didn't properly get into D&D until lockdown, until this Discord server that Martin made.
Yeah.
So obviously, all of the viewers of this will sort of know you as Beck, for the Ironfist Institute, but you've obviously played other characters before. We had our campaign we did before we even started recording. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about some of the other characters that you've played in other sessions.
Yeah. So my the first group, when I first joined the Adventurers Academy, I played a Dragonborn barbarian, and I love barbarians, man. They're just so good. You just run into a fight and smack stuff to death, and it's brilliant. Um, yeah, and I wanted her just to be dumb. It just thick, you know. And yeah, so I joined in, and then another player, Kay, who is in that group as well. Our 2 characters, her character was Oriana, just fell into this kind of mother-daughter best friends kind of relationship. More like Nala carer, making sure she doesn't do stupid things.
Nala was the name of your character, wasn't it? The Dragonborn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she was. Yeah, was it Oriana teaching her how to read and write? And yeah, it's just brilliant. I mean, kind of, I love character creation. There's that kind of aspect of D&D I love, like especially the backstory stuff. I think, when you're playing through, like the kind of personality of the people you're playing with, or the character, sorry. But like when you get into the backstory and you're like, you think you know a guy, and I love those kinds of things. Like, oh my god, they did what? So that's always fun, and I love writing backstories and that. So yeah, it's good fun.
The whole aspect of creating a character is a lot of fun. I have to say, I think what you said there about making a character that's specifically sort of low intelligence, specifically a sort of stupid character, can be so much fun, because I think it must be so much more difficult to play a character that's more intelligent than you are, but it's so
Yeah.
much easier to dumb yourself down, and it leads to some really funny moments. And I think especially with Nala, from the sessions that I listened into, Nala had a really nice sort of. It wasn't. It was less stupidity. It was more just naivety, which
Yeah.
I think made her a really really cool character to watch, because you're just like, it was like when you're watching Mr. Bean and you know that he's gonna mess something up soon, but it's just within his nature. And there's you just knew that sometimes you'd be in a conversation with her and you knew something was gonna go wrong because she was gonna misinterpret something.
Yeah.
And then
Oh, yeah.
finally, just to finish off our wee interview, what moment would you say, from having recorded where we're up to in the Ironfist Institute at the moment, what moment from our recordings are you most excited for people to see when it eventually airs?
Ooh, moment. I mean, from the final exam, messing around with all the fruits is really good. And then I think from like a role play point, in the most recent one we recorded, our argument I thought was really fun. Which I think is, we've had like some minor-ish like disagreements, but hasn't resulted in anything.
Yeah.
And I think kind of this is our first like real have a go at each other proper, like.
Yeah, definitely.
So it was really, really fun.
It's definitely it's good, because obviously you don't want to play with a group that's going to be at each other's throats the entire time, because that doesn't lead to a good playing experience. But when we know, like, we know that we get along well, and we know that we can have a little spat with our characters, and it'll just be an interesting sort of dramatic moment. I have to say I did enjoy recording that in our most recent session as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you very much for your time. I'll let you get going.
No worries.
And we'll move on to our next cast member. So, welcome back, everybody. I'm joined this time by Ben, who you'll all recognise as being the voice of Veldani in the Ironfist Institute. If you want to say a quick hello, Ben.
Hello, Ben.
That's what I love about it. You always follow instructions to the T.
I do what I can.
Yeah. So, first off, first question we've been asking everyone so far is, how did you first get started in Dungeons and Dragons? What was your initial impact with D&D?
It was just a case of, like, during lockdown and stuff like that. I wanted, like, I always listen to sort of Spotify and things on the way to work, and it was something like, I was kind of like, well, I'm listening to the same music over and over again. So then I was like, I'll try podcasts. So I was looking at like gaming podcasts, and a lot of them were kind of like reviews. But then I'd stumbled upon Critical Role, which I'd never really heard of before, and it was sort of partway through the second campaign, and I was like, oh, I wonder what this is, and like sort of, it was one of those where I just started listening. Like, I had no idea what they were playing to start with, like until like 2 or 3 episodes later, it was just this sort of story, as far as I was concerned, that they were telling. Kind of one of those, I was like, well, I'm really enjoying the stories that they're telling, and then I was just kind of like, well, I wonder how easy it is to play the game. And initially I was kind of like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Then, like probably most people, I just kind of went on the internet, and in my case, it was just joining a couple of Facebook groups for D&D, just kind of almost dipping my toe in. And then it kind of felt like once I'd kind of got started with it, it was less dipping a toe in, more, oh no, I've been dragged under, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And not really looked back since then.
Yeah, excellent. So again, I think it's been the same for most of us. It was lockdown, was the sort of catalyst for finding out a bit about Dungeons and Dragons, and obviously finding the Facebook post that Martin put up and joining the Discord.
Yeah.
Discord, and yeah, the rest is history. So obviously, you know, we've played the campaign before when we first joined. And I know that you've run a few one-shots and things yourself, so
yeah.
Obviously everyone knows you as sort of Veldani from our sort of audience, but what can you tell us about some of the other characters that you've played in D&D?
So with our last campaign, I was
It was sort of not necessarily a goody two shoes because quite often he was quite easily led astray by Captain Forth, which I'm sure you can attest to, James.
Yep, I definitely can. Yep.
But no, and it was more of a case of because whenever I've been playing sort of games and things like that, I've always kind of been drawn towards more like fighter, like melee characters and stuff like that. So it's basically games like sort of Skyrim, and like sort of the older like Elder Scrolls games and stuff like that. But even just normal sort of RPG games, so like stuff like Final Fantasy, I really enjoyed like hack and slash sort of games, like even Devil May Cry, and I was like, well, it'd be kind of cool to play a character that's sort of a mixture of fighting and magic, because it was one of those I didn't want to just sort of have my first character as a magic user because I didn't really feel like I knew enough about spell casting and spell slots and stuff like that, and I thought, well, at least if I run out of spell slots, I can just hold my shield up or just kind of mindlessly swing my longsword at them, or like my great axe, whatever weapon I've got to hand. But no, and like I kind of feel like it was probably a good introduction for me because it's kind of made me a bit more confident. But the other characters I've sort of come up with, so in a couple of the one shots that we've played that I've kind of done, there was a goblin. I can't remember his name now, which seems slightly criminal, because he made quite a few appearances. But my goblin sort of rogue assassin kind of character. But in terms of other characters in other campaigns I've played, we were running Curse of Strahd, but I think now everyone's back to work. It's kind of hard to get everyone sort of nailed down to yes, we're all free on this day kind of thing. But I was playing a tiefling cleric called Tor.
Right. Okay.
And it's one of those I quite like the supporty characters. In the it's one of those I don't want to sort of I don't want to kind of just be the hero in the story. I quite like to enable others. Do you know what I mean?
Do you take that sort of support role when you're playing video games? If you're playing online at all, would you tend to?
Oh God, no! If it's single player, no.
Right.
It depend. I mean, it depends on what kind of games I'm playing. I mean, probably a good or easy comparison is like sort of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
So it's like my main character at the moment is actually a warlock. So just like full on DPS, just out there to literally just murder whatever walks in my way. But I do like sort of I've got a couple of other high level characters. So funnily enough, one of my other high level characters on World of Warcraft is a human paladin.
Right. Okay.
Which is like a sort of tank spec. But it comes more down to the type of game that I'm playing. So it's like if it's stuff like RPG games, I tend to quite like I tend to quite like building a varied team. I suppose it's kind of hard to compare it to other games because there's not many other games where you've got like a group of people, because normally you think of groups of people playing online, you're thinking like Call of Duty, where generally teamwork will go out the window unless you're like sort of with a party that you've joined together with.
Yeah.
But even still, it's not like a lengthy. It's like I don't know, a 10-minute game and then on to the next one. Whereas something like this, it's very unique in that you're all together telling the story.
I think as well the sort of group aspect when it comes to D&D is very much like it's so different from a lot of like regular video games, like RPG video games you might play, like Mass Effect or something like that, because it's not just about you pick like your 3 people and you try and get a good spread of the different types of combat you might have to do. It's like you start a game with people and like there's a million things that you could come up with because someone will have some kind of random idea of we'll try this, and suddenly you're on one tangent or someone else will suggest this, and it's completely sort of improvising with other people as well, which is I think part of the one of the real sort of great aspects of D&D.
Oh God, yeah. So it's like comparing it with something like I've played a hell of a lot of like Final Fantasy VII, and it's to kind of put it into that kind of context is you've got characters like Cloud that are very melee heavy, and then you've got other characters like Aerith who are like sort of very sort of magic heavy and stuff like that, and you always want to try and sort of play to their strengths. Whereas even with that, you are literally railroaded with the story of this is where you have to go to progress. Whereas something like D&D, I mean, as much as Martin tries his best, bless him, trying to keep us on track is I'd imagine somewhat quite difficult. So there'll be quite a few times where it's a case of he'll have like a few base notes and say, right, well, if they go there, this is what I'll do. If they go there, this is what I'll do. And even then, it's probably a good chance that we just come up with something totally random that he's not planned for, and he's just thought, oh God, right, yeah, sorry, this is what we're doing. It's one of those
That's
where,
the phrase he always
oh
uses
God,
when it
yeah,
comes to us.
but yeah, because it's one of those where you can try and railroad your party as much as you want, but it's one of those. I'd imagine it's quite difficult as a GM to kind of say, oh well, this is the way we're going, because then if your party turns on saying, well, we don't want to go that way, and then if you're met with like sort of if the party then goes, well, we don't want to go that way, but then your GM's like, this is where we need to go to develop the story, and it's one of those where it's probably quite a difficult thing to. I mean, thankfully, we've not had to have that sort of in any of our sessions in either of the campaigns, to be fair. But it's one of those where I'd imagine that's something quite difficult to then have to kind of go, well, we're going to have to compromise if that's the case, because the story's going to go like on a massive tangent if we kind of do what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I have to say, I think we're very blessed to have Martin as our DM, because he just seems to find a way to, no matter what chaos we come up with, he just seems to find some kind of way to just keep us on track and keep developing the story in some way or another, which is a real talent, a real skill that he's developed, obviously, with his experience at DMing. And then for the final question, based so far on all the recording sessions that we've had for the Iron Fist Institute, what would you say is the moment from all the recordings that you're most excited for people to see when the episode airs?
But there's a couple, to be honest with you. The first one is probably the first episode, purely and simply because of the artwork. So it's one of those where, because of like we are quite lucky to have sort of like an artist, or actually I think there's like sort of 2 or 3 artists sort of throughout the groups. But Hannah, who's done all of our art so far, it's been, I mean, well, when people see it, it's just been absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
In that she sort of I think was it she'd asked us just to send like sort of stock images and general photos of things that she wants us to draw inspiration from, and it was one of those where I think in most cases when we were like, oh well, I want, like, this is what I'd like to have and this is what we'd like to do, and sort of I know pretty much for my character she absolutely nailed it.
Oh, absolutely.
But there's something I actually had a chat with her about the other day in that specifically something to do with Voldani's dagger. Once we hit level 3, there's something that I've kind of been planning as not necessarily a special move or anything like that, but there's something that it's going to click into play. And in terms of just artistic flair, I think it's gonna like sort of in my imagination, it's gonna look really cool. And if people then sort of are able to draw it or even bring it to life, I'd imagine it'd look absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much at the moment because not even you guys know what I'm on about.
Yeah, no.
There's only Hannah that knows what I've got planned so far.
Oh, very cool. That's something to definitely look forward to. I have to say, I think what's been great about Hannah with her artwork, I know you're saying like sending her stock images or something. I think I literally just sent her like a paragraph describing roughly what I thought MISHNIN might look like.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a vision in my head, but then as soon as she sent that initial sketch and I saw his stupid wee face and his mushroom hat, I was like, oh, that's him. You've absolutely nailed it. That is MISHNIN. Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, man. I'll let you get going if you need to rush off, and we'll move on to our next cast member. So, welcome back, and this time we're joined by Hannah, who's our fantastic artist for the Ironfist Institute. If you want to say hello, Hannah.
Hello.
So, first question I've got here for you, same with everyone else, was just how did you first sort of get started with D&D? What was your first experience of Dungeons and Dragons?
I would say that like my very, very first would probably be like general social media, seeing Critical Role and Dimension 20 and starting to watch some of these shows, but then actually playing it was actually with Martin, the DM of this campaign as well.
Right,
And
yeah,
I
okay.
still have an ongoing campaign with Martin. So
Yeah, of course, because you play on another night out with the Ironfist Institute recordings, don't you?
yeah.
Excellent. So I guess you're in a very similar situation to the rest of us, where I think most of us were sort of familiar with, gaming stuff and D&D beforehand, but it wasn't until we kind of joined the Discord and met Martin during lockdown that we actually all got playing together.
Yeah.
You touched on the other campaign that you play. I was going to ask, obviously, everyone here kind of knows you as the artist that has done all our artwork for the Iron Fist Institute, but you've obviously played yourself, and I think for one of the episodes that'll be coming out relatively soon, you took over as MORDUS-DRU for a campaign, or for an evening. Yeah. But what other sort of characters have you played in Dungeons and Dragons then?
I started out with Elrin, who is a half-orc druid, and by our first dungeons, Martin really loves to put in his fruit that has different things that happens.
Yes, yep.
And she ended up having a beard, which I chose to be permanent. So she has a beard, wandering around. She's able to make friends with practically anyone, weirdly enough, but usually not the kind that you would see as a friend. She has friends of both orcs and stone giants and dragons. And the character I'm currently playing with Martin in the newer campaign is Von, who is a bugbear. He used to be actually a half elf and got changed into a bugbear by Elrin. So that's kind of how he got wrapped into it all.
Excellent. So you sort of joined your newest character in with the sort of backstory of your character, your other character you had before. Excellent,
yeah, because we stopped playing just as I got the. I can't really remember the name of the spell, but it's kind of like resurrection, where you could choose. If a person had died, instead of revivifying them, you could resurrect or give them new life, but they would have like a new body. And I really wanted to use it, so that I just based a whole character around it.
Brilliant, yeah. And then a final question for you. From the recordings that we've done so far of Iron Fist Institute, you've obviously listened into a lot of them. What moment are you most excited to sort of come to air from the recordings we had so far? What was the one moment that you thought, oh, that's really great, I can't wait for people to be able to watch that?
Oh, it's hard to say. Probably like the thing that sticks into my mind is probably when they or MISHNIN took Keith and ran off.
Yep.
Just that moment of like, oh wow, you can really tell that these are very different people with very different backgrounds. You got him running off with Keith. I guess it was Beck running after him. Timmy trying to steal something. MORDUS-DRU, which I think I was the one playing at that time, just standing there very confused.
Yeah, I think that was our first introduction of Gary the Conscience Fairy.
Oh yeah. As well, so it was just absolute chaos, and I think that was really funny.
Awesome, yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'll wrap up the this little segment here, and we'll move on to. Well, to be honest, you might be the last person that we're interviewing here. I'm not sure how the order's going to go, but if there is someone else, you'll see them right after this. So welcome back, everybody. I'm joined by the man I think is going to be our final guest on this little Beat the Cast video, and that's our DM, Martin. If you want to say hello.
Hello.
I feel really nervous now. This is ridiculous.
There's nothing to be nervous about, don't worry. You should be more nervous about the fact that we're about to go and play a session right after this. That would definitely be the most difficult thing.
I know, I'm cool about that. This is what are these questions?
Well,
nobody tipped me off.
Well, question number one, very simply, is just how did you get started in Dungeons and Dragons? What was your first sort of experience of playing?
What do you mean, this decade or in my whole life?
In your whole life, yeah.
Right. I was 15 a long time ago.
In a galaxy far, far away.
yeah, basically, long time ago. I was 15 and somebody said, "Here, I found a new game. It looks really cool. You have to make characters." And I was sold. And we took a lunch break and we went back to his house because he lived in the same town as the school. And we rolled up characters. That was, yeah. So that was, yeah, a long time ago, 1983.
Wow.
So
yeah, no wonder
it was the beginning
you're the DM.
of.
You're definitely the most experienced.
I mean, I've had patches where I haven't played, but I've had periods where I played far too much. I didn't go to university, so I don't waste most of my university life doing it, unlike a lot of people I've spoken to.
Unlike Ash and myself.
Exactly.
So that was obviously your first experience actually playing. How long did it take you then to get into the DMing side of things?
That was a necessity.
Right.
Because nobody else would do it. So I joined the military at 16, went to college in the military, did my electronic engineering diploma, got out into the big wide world of the military and was posted to Germany. I met up with somebody else who played D&D and we decided to offer it to our friends and colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to pair off. So we DM'd together.
Right, okay.
Basically by taking turns. So we both had a character, and then occasionally that one would go, sort of take a back seat and we would DM, and then kind of did sort of campaigns where, you know, there was a break and that point would be taken over by the other DM. So.
Right. I was going to say, because most of us, from all the other people that I've been sort of interviewing for this wee thing so far, I think most of us have said that our first actual experience of playing a campaign was from joining your Discord and learning from you about how to set up a character. So it is interesting to hear your first sort of experiences, and the fact that you didn't even necessarily intend to do DMing, it just almost gets forced upon you. If you want to play, you had to DM it.
Yeah, basically, although we were nasty because somebody else wanted to join in and we thought it'd be really anti him, so we were playing pirates, so when we landed on an island, we both became land sick.
Right.
and we spent the first session just being sick everywhere. And he was totally miffed, which was really horrible of us to do. But I was younger and less wise then.
So since then, have you mostly done DMing, or have you done a lot of sort of playing other characters and stuff as well?
So I have, so as you know, the audience might not know, I'm quite travelled.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, I was in Shanghai in China, and I set up a group there. But I also joined a gaming club, so to speak,
right,
online, and different people would run different game systems.
Mm-hmm.
Call of Cthulhu was one that I took part in, which is like a 1930s detective thing.
Yeah, I'm roughly familiar with Call of Cthulhu.
A lot of people rave about it and love it. I think I had a bit of a mixed experience of it. I'd like to try it again, but
mm-hmm.
I'm all for other people. And I have friends back in the UK who are experienced DMs. So I've had cases where we've sort of swapped and changed, just depending on who feels like DMing.
Brilliant. What could you tell us about some of the other characters you've played then? Because obviously everyone that's watching this will just know you as the DM that runs the sessions and all of the NPCs. But what sort of interesting characters could you tell us about?
My most memorable one was a guy called Thurlock Vandergast. He was a fighter because in that edition you didn't get a choice depending on your dice rolls, and you couldn't move your dice rolls around, so you got what your dice rolled, and I rolled particularly bad except for strength, so I was a fighter. I really wanted to be a paladin,
right?
So my DM was very generous, and he says, "You're a fighter," and I went, "Okay." But I wrote a backstory in that my mother had been a druid who had bewitched a. It's going to sound awful. Who bewitched a paladin, had a child by him, and so I always wanted to be like my dad and be a paladin, but of course I wasn't capable of being a paladin.
Right.
And her god was Didymus, which was the god of dandelions. This gets worse. Because my DM took that and got the biggest barbarian type fighter in the group to start picking dandelions, at which point, with my lousy rolls, I tried to beat the crap out of him and failed miserably. And basically, he thought I was being funny. And when I was seriously, my character was trying to kill him. But I had rolled such bad rolls that he befriended me and became my bodyguard because he thought I was cute. So yeah, that was. I mean, at that time, I was really about organising things. I had horses. I had a riding horse, and then I had a pack horse, and I called them Thunder and Lightning. You know, it was, and I was really into logistics. So I started drawing maps of where all my items were in my inventory pouches and that. I was like, this is ridiculous. Anyway, yes, I was a bit crazy back then.
Well, no crazier than us during our sessions, I don't think. Like it'd be crazy.
Maybe that's why
to be that crazy.
Guys.
Yeah, maybe it's a perfect match. And then finally, last question for you, and I'll let you jump off and get back to DMing the session. Was what moment so far from recording the Ironfist Institute are you most excited for people to see when it airs in an episode? What was like the moment from recording the show so far that you went, I can't wait for people to see that moment?
When I say, right, that's it for tonight then, guys.
every week when the session finishes.
Oh my god, I got through it again, and nobody noticed. So you know that I designed the final exam. Mini campaign, whatever you want to call it. So I was glad that you guys liked the modifications, because this is like the third modification to it now. Talking to other people who've done game designing, you never finish with what you started with.
Yeah,
you're always tweaking it and perfected it. So I was very glad that you guys, except for you, of course, with your I forgot to add the maximum dice roll to my hit points MISHNIN, and I didn't cotton on to that. I kind of kicked myself for not seeing you do that, but I have to say it did add value, because you literally dropped every time you were hit, didn't you?
Yeah, but to be fair, I also noticed this very recently. Obviously, in the episodes that have just been recorded, we've just leveled up to level 3. But I've realised that the entire way through the series so far, episode from levels 1 and 2, I've been at the wrong health the entire time. Because I started adding +4 as my constitution modifier, but I've only got a +2. So I went from the first section in the final exam of having way too little health to then having way above what I was supposed to. But thankfully, as of now, it's all correct. But yeah, no, I've been for whatever, I think it was, I'm gonna blame D&D Beyond, because the way that it laid it out confused me. And while I am very easy to be confused, I think that they should be idiot friendly. and they weren't quite idiot friendly enough.
Yeah. I mean, now that you've said that, I'm now going to go back in and check everybody's hit points.
Everything else I've been doing is fine. I've probably had a few less spells than I could have, but I would much rather be playing, a character that's not as equipped as he should be, rather than over-equipped. If a character gets knocked down, then that's no big deal. But if it's like, oh, you actually shouldn't have survived that encounter because you just randomly gave yourself 10 extra HP, then I'd feel a bit bad about that from a gameplay perspective. But if I'm going down because it's my own mistakes, then I'm fine with that.
That's fine.
I can deal with that.
Yeah, it all depends. The earlier editions, you got the dice roll that you rolled.
Mm-hmm.
And if you bear in mind that a wizard or a magic user used to have a D4 to roll, plus your constitution, which wizards didn't generally have any constitution bonus. They might have a minus modifier.
Mm-hmm.
That made for interesting rolling. Your character could die before you'd finish creating them. So, no, I mean, from that respect, it's fine. It was good for the play, and it's all about the rule of fun.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time, Martin. I'll let you get going so we can start off our session. And thanks to everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little video of getting to meet the cast of the Ironfist Institute. We'll catch you next week.